It makes me get sketchy, just give me a link.
They have rules in it.
Not yet. But after the fact, I'm not ready to sit down yet. Oh, yeah, my book is in my car still. That's what we need, right? I'm just gonna stand until I have to say. I'm feeling so much better. Oh, that's good. Oh, my God. I was so. But this is. It was a sinus infection. That was an They need to stop watching me. I won't figure it out. No, it's gonna be bad. Smart. And you can turn them off if you need to. I have to turn them off.
Because we got so much going on
I'm gonna go get some more water.
It's not the
Yeah, I know. I'm trying
There's a lot of actions material.
Order at 6:03. Please rise if you're in the room and join us for the pledge of allegiance.
Somebody needs to turn there.
You need to leave.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a reminder for everybody, we do have Zoom going, so I would ask that if any of you speak, so that everybody in the room and everybody on Zoom can hear. Mute your own. And anyone online, Dennis and I will be keeping track in case you need to be contributing to the conversation as well. So, all right, moving right along. Approval of treasurer's warrants, payroll warrants for March 18th, 2022, March 25th, 2022, and April 1st, 2022. Is there your motion?
I move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Accounts payable warrants for March 22nd, 2022, March 29th, 2022, and April 5th, 2022. Do we hear a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Moving down to approval of the minutes for March 15th, 2022.
I move to approve. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions, corrections?
I have a question. I left early. I had to leave at about 6:35. I don't know if that needs to be reflected in the minutes.
Did you hear that, Jackie?
No.
Tim
What was
left
the,
early. Does that need to be noted in the minutes?
I'm sorry, what needs to be noted?
Asking, does it need to be noted in the minutes that Kim had to leave early from that meeting?
Okay,
Yeah, I left it at 6:35.
Okay. Any other corrections, additions, questions? Okay. Seeing none, calling for a vote, all those in favor with that one change? Opposed? Abstain? Okay, passes 4-0-1 with Kim is abstaining. Number 4, special presentations and awards. I do not believe we have any. Number 5, committee appointments. We can take these all 3 together. Peter McRae for the planning board, a reappointment. Michael Costigan, or I hope I'm saying that right, for the airport committee, and Peter Wells for the cemetery committee, a reappointment. Open for a motion.
I move that we approve the appointments as listed. Second.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, calling for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to public hearings. First one for Bath Ale Works at 681 Bath Road for a liquor license. Do I hear a motion to enter into a public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? We are in a public hearing at 6:07 PM. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak regarding? Yes, ma'am. If you could come up to the mic and say your name, please.
Yes, good evening, Leslie Roberts, resident of Wiscasset. I just had a comment about the upcoming White Island project.
Oh,
Wait,
I'm sorry. This is just on the liquor license for Beth. That's okay.
Okay, I'm coming right back.
Sorry about that. We'll get there. Any questions, comments on the liquor license for Bath Ale Works? Anyone online? Going once, going twice. Seeing none. Motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? We are closed for that public hearing at 6:08 PM. Open for a motion on the liquor license.
Motion to.
On the bottom of page 1.
Motion to approve the liquor license application for Bath Ale Works located at 681 Bath Road.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on the application? Seeing none, calling for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Next, public hearing for the proposed new harbor fees. Open for a motion to open the public hearing.
I move we open the public hearing for the new harbor fees.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 5-0. We are open at 6:09 PM. Is there anyone in the public who would like to speak regarding the proposed harbor fees? Yes, Tom.
My name is Tom Joyce, and I'm a resident of Wiscasset. I'm also on the budget committee, and I'm the current president of the Wiscasset Yacht Club. Some of our members, many of them are concerned about the harbor fees, which my understanding is they're going up by about 150% for a resident and about 100% for a non-resident. My view, and this is feedback that I've gotten from a number of our members, is that this is too much in a single year. Being on the budget committee, I'm aware that fees need to go up and that costs are going up, but this would seem to be a hardship for people, for fishermen, for residents who are recreational boaters, and could be taken in a different way and done over time with investments being made in how the moorings are handled. What I read when this was put forward initially was that a study had been done showing that our fees were below market. We did, and we can certainly go through the details. I put it in a note to, I think, all of the committee members. We did our own study, and based on the information that we could get from the surrounding towns, at $50 for a resident, we were already on the high side, and frankly, the highest in the area, going up by 150%. From that would put us as an outlier relative to a lot of the surrounding towns. We think that this could actually drive people away from mooring in Wiscasset. I'm curious as to whether or not the committee has done an analysis of the extent to which we're going to lose people that could go to one of these other towns, could go right over to Edgecombe, where they pay $350 one-time fee and never pay anything again after that. They could go to towns nearby that charge zero. So we think it has the potential to backfire. My understanding is there are about 19 people that are waiting for moorings in Wiscasset, waiting just to get a company to put the mooring in for them. I have to think that those people would be concerned to the extent that they might go elsewhere if they're looking at a few $1,000 increase over a 10-year period. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is David King. I'm a Woolwich resident, and I'm with a mooring contractor here in the harbor. I presently do 31 moorings in the harbor. I'll give you some numbers here. Bath, which is comparable to Wiscasset, it's also 12 miles inland, $25 for resident, $50 for non-resident. West Bath is $10 for resident, $50 the first year for non-resident, and $25 after. Hoop Bay Harbor, right on the ocean, is $50 for resident and $100 for non-resident. Pittsburgh is $25 for resident and $100 for non-resident, and in the town of Woolwich, $0. My concern is with 12 miles in, whenever somebody calls me and wants to talk about a mooring, they're not sure what town to put it in. I always try to talk them into Wiscasset. I tell them it's right beside Route 1, and they say, well, gee, you're not very likely close to the ocean. My argument always is, would you rather drive an extra hour in your car or spend an extra hour in your boat? But the problem with that is with the price of fuel right now, my boat, I have 150 horsepower on the back, burns 11 gallons an hour. So for me to run 2 hours down river, that's expensive. I towed a sailboat up that broke down at the end of the Cheapskate River last summer. Took me 5 hours with and the boat I was using that day at 250 horsepower. It took me 5 hours to tow that sailboat up the river against the tide. It's tough with the price of fuel and everything to convince people that they should be here, especially when they can go to a town that's right on the ocean. They can climb on their sailboat, untie the mooring, and hoist their sails. Here, they've got to run down river, especially if they're running against the tide. It's going to take them 2 or 3 hours to get down to the ocean. You've got a terrific harbor. I wish I had it at Woolwich. But you've got a terrific harbor here. They can be the crown jewel of this town if it was properly managed. But when you're already the most expensive business in the area, to triple your fee, it doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we did get an email from Bill Sutter that all of the select board got in their packet as well. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jody Haggett, commercial lobster fisherman. I just wanted to say that I can't speak for the recreational guys, but I've spoken with some of the commercial guys. I had hoped to get some of them here tonight, but I didn't realize the meeting was tonight, so a little bit short notice. But anyway, I'm at, between my mooring fee, I have to pay to use the commercial pier, the mast and boom, and I have a tie-up fee. I'm at $350 now. So if they would go up 100, I'd be at 450. I just think it's a lot of money. One of the other commercial guys I spoke with said he would more than likely go across to Westport Island where we have a co-op over there. And all you have to do is move his mooring. There's no fee because my grandfather for 25 horns or something like that, but, that's my biggest concern. It just seems like $450 is a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. Motion to close the hearing.
I move to close the public hearing on Harbor Foods.
Second. All those in favor? Okay, the public hearing is closed at 6:16 PM. Open for motion / discussion from the board. Kim?
I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I would request that we could table this. I would want to go back and review the meeting when we agreed to these fees. I mean, we're usually pretty reasonable, so I'm not comfortable approving it now, but I feel like there must be some reason we came to this, and I honestly just don't remember tonight, so if we could table it, if you guys want to vote, then I'll, my bad, I'll go ahead and vote against it, but I would request to table it for 2 weeks if possible.
Yeah, I have no problem tabling it for the next meeting. I got to say, I am not in favor of raising the fees and changing the fees at all. To me, what we're charging here is a little on the high side, but the people who are here have agreed to pay those prices. I think raising the prices, you're gonna lose borrowers, and you're gonna get less money because they just won't come.
Sure.
I've been, I'm your liaison for the waterfront committee. And the thing about that, the fees going up, especially for the resident mooring, we have a new mooring system. And the comment has been made that we need at least an additional $15 in fees in order to cover that. I think probably we have more that needs to be said. I agree. We don't have to decide this tonight. Maybe, and I think there are probably some halfway recommendations that come from the waterfront committee. There are other considerations, perhaps $100 for the first year and 75 after that. There are other ways to go.
And I know they did do a pretty extensive data collection from all around.
It was
It would be
a
helpful to
beautifully
hear.
done study, and there are reasons why these recommendations were made. They weren't made lightly, and they weren't just throwing numbers up in the air, and they discussed it for a long time, and our county planner was the one who did the work. Thank you for bringing that up. I would really like to honor the committee with, let's let them have a chance to come back with something instead of.
I would remand it back to them for a review based on the comments they heard here tonight. And bring something forward, something new forward.
Do we need to officially vote on
I think so.
that? Okay.
Yeah, I move to send this information back to the waterfront committee and have them bring back this in today.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions, Dusty?
Yeah, just to reiterate what you guys are saying, and I would also ask that they bring information on how they came up with these rates. I remember asking that the last time this came up a few weeks ago, and I don't remember the answer, but I'd like more information on how they came up with these rates.
Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor? Motion 5-0. Passes, so we will discuss at the next meeting with some more information. All right, moving down to public comment. This is public comment on things that are not on the agenda, and so just to be clear, what will be in the budget discussion is anything with the budget, but also that includes any discussion of White's Island or the proposed pier expansion. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what's coming. If it's something other than that, please come to the microphone. Jorge.
Okay, Jorge Pena, resident of Wisconsin. Just tell you what a beautiful day it is. No, seriously, I would like to congratulate the select board the police department and anybody involved in placing the speedometers on Gardner Road. I think that regardless of where you live, we all appreciate when the safeguards of the citizens are protected. That being said, I live in Federal Street. And for several years, the speed seems to be increasing and increasing. And I know we are close to a racing area, but it's not a racing area. In that street, there are two schools, one for children that are 5 years old or less, and the other one for elementary school. We, the neighbors, put signs there asking the people to slow down, to not avail. The police religiously patrol the area trying to catch those speeding. I know people are in a rush to go either to the job, the place where they work, or going back home. However, we are placing in danger not only those children, but all people like me that we have to cross the street to collect our mail. Nobody stops, nobody slows down. So I would like you to consider placing on a speedometer to give us a solution to slow down those people racing through that street. Thank you.
Second. Dennis?
Sir, and the police chief is here. He's been working very hard with the state to obtain some digital speed limit signs, and he's been successful with that. So they're going to be placed on Federal Street and at both sides of Route 1. We're actually a pilot project for the state for this. In addition, there will be red squares painted in the highway to kind of further bring to your attention that you need to slow down. So
Thank you so much.
So congratulations to the chief for pulling that off.
Any other public comment? Peter, is that a hand or a hat?
It's a hand. We have some revisions to White's Island.
Do you mind coming? So the owl can pick you up.
Since we're not on the agenda, should I present them now or should I wait?
In just a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Chris,
So is White's Island an agenda?
it's part of the budget discussions, which is in 2 more items.
Okay, so that's not at public
Right.
comment now.
We will have public comment on that. Yeah, but just in a minute. Any other non-agenda items for public comment? Just trying to keep us organized. I know. All right. I don't think we have any department head or committee chair reports. All right, so unfinished business budget discussion. What I'd like to do is go through each of the pieces that we need to get through. Select board discussion first. I will then open it up for public comment, just like we do normally. Please try to keep it to 5 minutes. So just in the interest of making sure everybody has time to speak, we'll come back to you if necessary, and then we'll come back to the board for any final discussion and any votes where applicable. So we've got 3 major things to get through. One, all the remaining accounts in terms of such as planning, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec, community organization.
Yes, I have these circled. Was there, I feel like there was another one, revenues, obviously, but.
Community organization, Parks and Rec, planning with the 3 budgets that we have.
Okay. All right. And then we.
Cemeteries. That's, the motion I made was to exclude revenue, community organization, parks and rec, cemeteries and planning. That was the motion I made.
Why would we exclude?
I don't know, somebody said it and they didn't want to move on it, so we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's why I wrote it down, because it was a long list.
Okay, so we'll go in order here. So other community organizations, Dennis put together the numbers with what we had expressed, which has. Okay, which does not include LCTV or Maine Public, which does include Life Flight of Maine, Waldo Community Action Partners, and Spectrum Generations as additions. And just as a flag, last time, we had included the increase, for the library. So bottom line is now $71,737. Do you have any further board discussion on community organizations?
Okay, could you run the list that was off of that again?
So the additions are Life Flight of Maine, Waldo Community Action Partners. For those who don't know, that doesn't mean they only serve Waldo. Just want to make sure that's clear. And Spectrum Generations.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any questions? Any questions from the public? Okay. Open for a motion then to add to the town warrant.
I move that we approve the community organizations warrant question at the amount of $71,730.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any final discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Going down to Parks and Recreation. Dennis, can you highlight it?
Dusty had some questions that he wanted to answer to this, and I'm not going to speak to him, but I'm presenting the budget as originally presented,
As originally?
as presented at the last meeting.
Oh.
I'll just say I had a chance to talk with Dwayne and Dennis together last week, and we had a good conversation. I needed more time just to think about it and consider it. And we had some new information last week, and they're taking on the White Island project and everything. So it's still a stressful part of the budget, but I can recommend it this year. We don't really, unless anybody else wants to talk about it, I don't think too much.
Open for a motion.
I move that we approve the Parks and Recreation budget at, it is $977,546. Correct?
Yes.
There you go. So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. All right, moving down to the planning.
So that one, Mary Ellen did get back to me yesterday, and I'm talking to them today. If you recall, I said that we might be able to increase their hours to like 20 hours a week and have them in here. They were kind of lukewarm onto that idea. They are willing to add more hours to do economic development and assist with grants. Right now, they're averaging about 4 hours a week. They could average up to 20 hours a week. And still do it for with a budget of about 50,000, which is less than half of what was proposed as a full-time economic development person that I sent you. So
Pam?
In your opinion, is that enough for us to get going on?
I feel like we kind of put the gun to our head at the last minute and said, I think we just need to do this. I think we need a better plan going forward. We need to develop a job description for this, and we need to figure out what we really want them to do. I'm going to recommend that we just up the budget to 50,000 and stay with Lincoln County, and then put forth a better plan for next year. I want the voters and the town people to feel comfortable that, this is a worthwhile position and it can do some good. And I just don't feel like we're there yet.
And that would cover 20 hours a week? Is
That would cover up to 20 hours.
I'm ready to make that motion.
I want to give anybody from the public any comment?
Bill, actually, I would be surprised if you didn't stand up. So.
Bill Maloney from Federal Street. This is probably my 8th year trying to get a economic development person. We've got too many things and too few taxpayers. We need some business, some clean business in here, like the Swedish company down there and Peregrine, people like that. Give us some property tax and also some good paying jobs too. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
Kim Dolce. I don't wholly disagree with Bill. I do appreciate that this is something that we need, but I wholeheartedly agree with Dennis. I have been saying for a couple of years now, maybe 3, that we need an actual job description. The last time the town had a planner, that poor man ended up spending most of his time just sitting in all sorts of meetings, and his time was not used to the full effect.
Thank you. Open for a motion? Yeah.
I move we approve the planning budget at $50,000, sorry. I had 55 is what he recommended at the last meeting. So I move we approve the planning budget for the warrant at $50,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded, further discussion? I'll just say that I think this is a step in the right direction. I agree with Bill, this is something we really need, but I think this is very much a step in the right direction. I know it's been a big help, particularly for the planning board and the ORC and the waterfront committee, just to have the number of hours that we've had from them this year. So I think if we can really take advantage of that and make the case for the public for a full-time person over this next year, that will make a big difference. Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Cemeteries, I guess.
Was anybody here, Bill, do you remember what the issue was with the cemetery budget?
But I had it down too.
Yeah, I think somebody had questions about the revenue, and we decided that it should come back, but I don't remember what their issue was.
There was no revenue with the cemetery.
They had somebody said something about the revenue, and it's, you know, the perpetual care fund and plot sales and all of that, so I don't know, I can't remember what their main issue was, I just know that we said, well, maybe we'll vote that next time.
Well, Peter's here, can we ask?
So it's on the.
Do you remember, Peter, if we, why?
No.
Okay, well, if we didn't do it, then let's do it.
There you
Ready
go.
for a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve, oh, I don't have the cemeteries line on here, do I need the price?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I move that we approve the cemeteries budget on the town warrant.
I can tell you what it is though, just in case.
It's $178,185.
There you go. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Yes, let's remember. All right, all those in favor? Thank you.
It's been a long day.
All right, is there anything else on the non-revenue accounts that we're missing?
I don't think so. That's it.
Okay, so let's move on to revenues then. Would you suggest we take these as a whole after we go through any questions or? Okay.
So the projected, the revenue year to date is as of today. So you can see that we've collected almost 97% of our projected non-property tax revenue already this year. So safe to say we will have a decent revenue surplus at the end of the year.
Good job.
Thank you.
Any questions on any of the revenue accounts? Okay, not seeing any. Open for a motion.
Move to approve the revenues as projected.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0.
Budget's done.
Well, that part's.
Well, yeah, one part.
You got one big one on that.
All right. Capital, so before we get into it, just want to make sure that, so everybody got the updated list, and I wanted to clarify, because Dennis pointed this out to me, that the proposed recreational pier expansion is on here. None of White's Island is on here, just in terms of totals. So if I'm correct, without White's Island, we're at $2,168,500, correct?
Correct.
In terms of what's on the proposed sheet.
And Dan Lay is here tonight to kind of talk about the investment account and some thoughts. And if you guys have questions in terms of how much we should be taking out, whether or not we should maybe look at borrowing some of this, or what you want to do. So
Start with that. That'd be great.
and I believe I gave you the updated yep, the updated financials that you sent
I'm
today.
just looking for it. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
I don't have it.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm Dan Lay with H&M Payson. My firm manages the both the reserve and the endowment accounts for the town of Wiscasset, and we've been for well over 10 years now. So Dennis and I had a conversation about the number you're looking to withdraw from the reserve accounts at this point, because I think we're just talking about the reserve accounts. The endowment accounts, as you know, are designed to fund specific projects, whether it's the rec center or the cemetery trust that you were just talking about, cemetery funds. The reserve accounts are really designed to supplement your capital budget. Now, the investment policy, which I know Pam is familiar with because she's been here since the beginning, and so has Ed. But the investment policy, basically what it does is it tries to keep a moderate spending level or a sustainable spending level for that reserve fund. And that is in the policy maxed out at 4.5% with a minimum of a 2.5% drop. And I know in the last several years, more than that has been taken out. We've had the advantage of some pretty nice market tailwinds, again, over the last decade or so, you know, with some exceptions, there have been some ups and downs clearly. But I think it's important to understand that when we came on board, particularly the reserve account, and both accounts in total were around $12 million, $12.1 million. The town has taken out just short of 9.2 million since 2011 from that $12 million fund that was left from the nuclear plant. I can't remember the name of it. But at this point, but not so long. So now, fortunately, there have been investment gains of almost 14.5 million over that period. So historically, for those of you who weren't here, I mean, basically the town, that endowment was a sinking fund. It was going away. And there was a committee formed that Ed was involved in, I think Pam was involved with it. So, who else? But I guess Frank Barnaco was involved originally. But the point is that group and then the select board at the time put together this investment policy very thoughtfully and the spending policy very thoughtfully. And for many, many years, the town was able to hew to that spending policy. Now, I know there were some extraordinary distributions related to schools and withdrawal from the SAD. And then I think last year, it looks as though the town took a little over 7.5% from the portfolios. Now, that's the combined portfolio, the consolidated portfolio. The long-term sustainable spending rate for these endowments, in order to be able to grow these endowments on a real basis over time, is 3.5%, maybe 4%. Because these are really closed endowments, these are closed funds, which means that you're not going to get any contributions from them in the future. I mean, maybe some to the endowment, but not to the reserve. So, and the numbers, if you're looking, Ms. Chairwoman, is we started out, this is fiscal year to date, we started out at 18.51 million, and it looks like we took 1.366 million from the portfolio, so that's why I'm getting my 7 and change from the draw standpoint. So that's roughly twice the sustainable spending rate. Now, in the past, and Dennis knows, and those of you who heard me speak before, I've not been a fan of borrowing. I'm just not. I don't like leverage. It's the Yankee in me. It's also the investment management person. I don't like leverage, but I understand from time to time we've needed to do that, and we've been fortunate that the returns in the portfolios have justified that decision, particularly in a very low interest rate environment. So dynamics have changed a little bit, right? So we've got a much higher inflation rate, call it 6 to 8%. So depending on what you can borrow at these days as a municipality, and I'll leave that to the town manager to discuss, but if it's anywhere under that 6 to 8% range, you're basically borrowing at negative rates. So it's not that I've changed my mind about borrowing, I still hate it, but at the end of the day, if you can borrow at somewhere in the 2 to 3% range, at a municipal rate, has it gone up? What is the number?
We're gonna be, depending on how many years we go out, we're gonna be between probably 3 and 4.5%.
Okay. That's still below the inflation rate. So if you take inflation, it's called 7%. Some of the recent prints have been closer to 8. And let's say it's 4%, then you're borrowing essentially a negative 3% rate. So if you've got a question about either drawing from the portfolio or borrowing at this point, I think you still should take some from the portfolio. I'd like to see you stick in that 3.5 to 4% range, and then maybe borrow the rest. But at the end of the day, it's going to be very difficult for us to be able to generate the types of returns that we have in the past. I mean, I can look at the returns as of the end of March. So fiscal year to date returns, so that's 9 months for the first 3 quarters of the fiscal year. The return on the portfolios, these are consolidated, are 1.5%. Now, the 2021 return on the portfolios was over 18%. 3-year annualized numbers are 14%, 5-year returns are 12%, but you get the point. Returns are gonna start to come down, and it's gonna be much harder to meet that 3.5 to 4% bogey that's in the investment policy. So I would urge the select board and the folks to understand that we're gonna expect much less robust returns going forward on the portfolios. And if you want to do a hybrid borrowing draw from the portfolio, I think that probably makes sense. But I think we need to just be aware going forward, we can't expect the type of returns that we've seen over the last 10 years. So I just wanted to, Dennis and I talked about it. Thought it was important when I come up and bang that message home. I've done it in the past, as Pam knows, so. But I'm happy to answer any questions about the portfolios or what our outlooks are.
Dan, how long should we look at doing something like this? Over 5 years, over 10 years? I mean, we want to stay within that 3.5%. If we go with 5 years, and a lot of what's on here, we're going to kick over that 3.5% for the next 5 years.
Right.
With what I have for capital coming up.
I mean, I think the maximum draw in the policy is a good maximum. That's 4.5%. Because, I mean, and how we arrive at those numbers is whether or not you want the portfolios to grow on a real basis, right? That means after inflation. So setting aside what we're looking at with inflation these days at 6 to 8%, let's just say a long-term inflation rate is 3. So if you can, you got to start with that. So if you've got 3%, if you draw 4, that means you have 7% just to be able to break even with the portfolio. And if you want any real growth over and above inflation, then you got to add to that. So 8% is going to require, 8% is going to get you 1% real growth, 9% is going to get you 2. Now, we've been fortunate to do that, again, with the tailwinds that we've seen in the markets over the last decade or so. But with rates rising, you've got actual competition for equities now. So, and we've obviously got a lot of things going on in the world right now. And even though the US is still the best place to invest, I just think the returns, it's going to be much harder to come by 8 and 9% returns without having a much heavier exposure to equities, something along the lines of 90 to 95%. And I don't think the town's ready to have that kind of volatility in the portfolio or take that kind of risk. So if you can keep the spending at that 4.5% maximum, and maybe we can, tread water for a few years from an inflation standpoint. That would be preferable. But you just, if we start repeatedly taking 7, 8, 9% of the portfolio, then the portfolio is going to decline on a real basis. And remember how we got here. I mean, again, at 12 million in 2011, we spent over 9. So again, we've been fortunate to be able to not just keep pace with that, but also grow the portfolio on an absolute and on a real basis. But I don't think we can count on that over the next 10 years.
Questions?
Very clear.
So 4.5% is, what is that?
I'd like to see that as the ceiling. Now, if you can do that as a ceiling and maybe marry it with some borrowing to figure out how to close whatever you
Can we borrow from ourselves?
Well, no, you would borrow from a bank. Oh, borrow, my experience is if you borrow from yourself, you don't pay it back.
Well, if we borrow from ourselves, we have to pay it back to taxation, so.
Am I correct, where if that 2 million is roughly 12%? If we just did it that way? Okay.
I think the reserve fund is somewhere in the.
The reserve is around 12 million, so we're
Is
looking
that
at,
what, okay.
yeah, so 4.5% of 12 million is.
Oh, never mind, I was thinking that wrong.
What is that? Are you figuring it?
4.5% of 12 million.
Yes, how much?
So 5% would be 600,000.
Yeah, so you're looking at like 515,000, something like that.
So if you borrow 600,000, which is the 5% number from the reserve, remember, we're just talking about the reserve, not the endowment.
Not the endowment.
Oh, right.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I
And
was.
so again, this is related to capital budget. I mean, you've got expenses related to cemetery and a whole host of other sub-accounts that the endowment fund can fund. But if we're just talking about that $2 million shortfall in the context of capital or reserve accounts, then that's the number you want to work with, is the 12 million out of 17. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Other questions for Dan? Bill?
Bill Maloney, is there any advantage in, let's say we're gonna borrow $1 million. If we borrow $1 million and take $1 million in our account as collateral, is there any advantage in the interest rate with that?
So I don't work for a bank, but I mean, the bank would probably give you some kind of a rate advantage if you collateralized it with assets from the reserve funds. I don't know what the difference would be, but I mean, I assume Wiscasset's credit rating is pretty solid. And you have deposit relationships with the banks. I don't think they're going to insist that you collateralize it, but you could see if.
Yeah, I can run that by, I mean, we've done business with the First, they've used us exceptionally well. Not that we can't go out, for an RFP on something like this, but, I can run that by them and see. My guess is probably not, because I think they're using us pretty well anyways.
And the longer duration, the borrowing, I mean, everyone is of the mind that rates are going up, which means who knows if probably going to go down. But when everyone, I don't believe in the consensus, so usually people try to go the opposite way. But banks are preparing for, these are loans they're going to have on their books, so they have to eat the increases in interest rates that are going to be coming down the road. So they're not going to obviously give you the rates that you're used to getting, but you might be able to save 0.25% if you can collateralize it or secure it with assets from the reserve funds.
Other questions?
And so with everything that Dan, just to be clear, with everything that Dan's just given us, we would be borrowing somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000. And then the loan would be 1.668.
You mean withdrawing?
Drawing.
Yeah, we're drawing $500,000, and the borrower would be 1,668,500. Okay, just to be clear, so that.
Because you gotta remember that now that 40,000 or whatever it ends up being, is being carried over every year to these other years that we have in here that are already over the 4.5%.
Right.
So that's the crux of, this is kind of why I did this great big spreadsheet for you guys, to give you an idea of what we have for infrastructure in this town and what it costs to maintain it. Just because there's $2 million here, there's a whole lot of other things on here that have to be repaired, replaced, bought, borrowed, whatever, that's either gonna come out of this fund or gonna come out of taxation at some point in time. And it's pretty extensive.
Is there any kind of ballpark on what this reserve fund should be in general? Like, I fully understand the 4.5%, and I'm particularly with endowments, that kind of thing, I'm usually on that side of don't take more than that. But I guess I don't have a sense of where should this be in general? Is there any kind of guidance on, is 12 million enough to have in there? Should it be higher? Does it matter if it's?
Well, it was 21, 22, right? And then got spent down to just under 10. Because in order to ameliorate or eliminate any mill rate increases over the years. And now it's back up. So, I mean, it depends on what you back into what the endowment needs to be at the spending rate, given what the draw is going to be. So, if you're going to draw, I mean, $12 million sustainably is going to, you should be drawing somewhere in the 350 to 400,000 range. That's to grow. Because at the end of the day, these costs go up, right? I mean, we run into these scenarios where we're going to go through these difficult inflationary times, and sometimes it's not going to be as high. And we hope that longer term rate is going to be 3%. But the capital reserves are always going to need to try and fund that. Otherwise, you're just going to wake up one day and there's going to be a massive tax bill on your doorstep. I don't know what the rate increases have been on a regular basis, but again, that's just the math of endowment spending. Now, if you were able to get some kind of a increase in your tax base, I mean, that's certainly going to help. So, but at the end of the day, I mean, if this is just the reserve fund too. I mean, I think you've got more money than you need in the endowment fund, but the endowment is limited to the sub accounts for which people leave the money, right? Again, cemetery, direct center, that type of thing. So, police cruisers, ambulances, piers, whatever you're spending the capital dollars on, can only come out of this reserve.
Like $1 million in the van fund.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And
But to answer your question, Sarah, if you have a $10 million fund, and you're going to take 4% per year, that's 400,000.
Yeah.
$20 million fund, that's 800,000. $30 million fund, that's $1.2 million. The larger the fund is, the larger your annual withdrawal that you can use for whatever purpose. So the ideal event is just let it grow, but stick to the discipline of limiting what you take out each year. The whole basis for that, when we first started it 10 years ago, Pam was a part of that, was we're going to have a lot of good years and we'll benefit by it. And as we get into bad years, and many of us are thinking we're heading into a few bad years ahead, you could still take out 4% and you wouldn't lose that much overall. But that was the thinking behind it.
And it's also set up to be a rolling average, right? So not a snapshot. I mean, this is a snapshot. So your actual number is probably lower from a policy perspective, but it's been rising, right? It's been ascending left to right on that axis in the right direction for 10 years. So.
yeah.
Just a quick question. Are any of the items on this capital list, I'm gonna forget out of the reserve funds?
Out of the endowment?
Excuse me, thank you, endowment.
No.
Okay, so this is just from
Just
that
the 12
12 million that we're talking about. And
Correct.
And we're looking at spending in the neighborhood of 4 million over the next 3 years.
Yes.
Over 3 years, yes.
3 years, thank you.
Further?
No, I mean, I think this is just the conundrum that you find yourself in. These are the things that we have to take care of. And this is what the man is telling you that we probably, it's either got to come from the reserves or it's got to come from taxation or it's got to come from a combination of both.
And this portfolio has been beating the market regularly. I mean, so we've been very fortunate And I don't want to have a bad year, but that happens, you know.
I would be in favor of sticking on the conservative side of the recommended 3.5%. Every year that I've been on the board, we've taken over the 4.5%, and so the market's been really great. It does look like things are changing. And then as far as the rest of the list goes, I think we have to suck it up and look for a loan.
So I thought we'll go to talk through any of the things that are actually on the list, as well as White's Island and the pier expansion and anything else that might have been added. And then we can come back to this, because I think we need to decide, have the rest of the discussion on the actual things before we talk about how we're gonna pay for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All set? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
You got it.
All right.
Appreciate you taking the time.
Sure, anytime.
So first, any questions on the pieces that are in this big spreadsheet? I had a question on the community center parking lot. I think Dennis, you said Ted looked at it today.
Did you walk, Ted?
Yes, I did. My feeling is that you can wait. You can wait this time. It's not gonna get any better. So the price of hot top that we discussed this morning is if we could, I'm gonna run with a chip seal deal this year, trying to get cheaper, better price on the smaller roads that can handle it. And I'm thinking we should put the money into our roads instead of into that parking lot. But for now, someday it's gonna have to be done. But our roads are in a lot worse shape than that parking lot.
Which parking lot was that?
Community center. Which is in here for 90,000. No. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 88 something, so I just rounded up.
Thank you, Ted.
Where is it on that sheet?
Well, it's in the narrative.
It's not on this sheet.
It is, it's
It's
under the
in the
community
number.
center, it's 170,000.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, because there's 80,000 in there for the roof that we really need to get done. But, and Ted and I had this discussion today, and hopefully maybe next year, oil prices will come down and hot top prices will come down and we can probably get this done, but it just doesn't seem like the right time to do it. The chip seal will get a lot more roads done for a lot less money, at least the roads that will handle it. And there are a few, so I think we'll actually get more done this year for the same amount of money.
Any questions or discussion on any of those items? That includes the proposed match for a hopeful grant for the recreational pier. I'll open it up to any public comment. Kim? I am, like I said, I'm gonna time for 5 minutes. I'm happy to have you come back up to the mic, but I want to make sure we get to everybody.
As far as the recreational pier, I do understand the benefits of expanding that pier, but it didn't escape me that a number of the other towns that the waterfront committee looked at had marinas in place that were privately run. And I don't feel that we've taken a serious look at bringing in a private for-profit person to create that marina for us. I don't see that that we want to be in the business of running a marina. There's certainly things down there that we need to do and we should be doing, but I think we're missing the boat here, that somebody could become, oh, sorry, no pun intended. We're recognizing it. I just think, we could put out some kind of call for proposals, and there may be somebody who would be thrilled to come in here and build that infrastructure for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
We're not looking at a marina yet, right?
Yet. See, you want one. You want one.
Yes, but not now. I'm seeing this in the future.
But why not explore the option of having somebody come in?
I would love
and we give them a long-term, we give them a sweetheart deal to come in and build the infrastructure.
I would love it. Get on it. I'll go with you. Let's go
Other-
find somebody.
Anyone else from the public who'd like to speak on any of those pieces, including the pier? Okay. So I will move on to White's Island. We have, I'm gonna ask Peter to come up and give us a rundown of the update since the last meeting, and then we'll move into discussion.
You can do it with your phone? That's cool.
That's not good at it yet.
Well, it's good. It's good. Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Peter Wells. I'm a resident of Wiscasset. I'm here on behalf of the Parks and Rec. Registered landscape architect that is helping Wayne and his staff with regard to developing plans and opportunities for White's Island. Since our last presentation, we've heard from many of the public with regard to their concerns. We've adjusted our plans accordingly. And I'm here to present two other options for both the island itself and also Pleasant Street extension area. I've given you guys copies of two options for Pleasant Street extension. And I can also submit a digital copy of that. Met with Mid-Coast Conservancy last week, we meeting Gwen and myself with regard to getting them on board in hopes of going after additional grant money. They were very informative. We talked about low impact development, which is the LID development. It's basically soft engineering approach to stormwater management. Stormwater management comes into play with this project because of the Pleasant Street extension and the parking area. And basically what's low impact development is, it's a ecologically based stormwater management approach that treats water in a soft way, meaning using plant material to treat water and contaminants that are in water from cars that are parking on pavement. And treatment is getting rid of silt and or oils generated from cars that are parked there. So we've included that in our new plan in hopes of treating the water prior to entering the Sheepscot River, and also attenuating water and dealing with the problems that are down there now, which are many as far as silt and the erosion problem that's down the mess. So with that, I'd like to present the two options.
We did find out after further review of the grant and of the easement that a playground is not approved in terms of adding that to our program element. So we removed the nautical themed playground and we've incorporated a very nice garden area with native plantings, a very rural type garden area that is located where the playground used to be. We've also included an overlook / fishing and seating area as you enter the island itself. So that's an addition to our previous plan, and I think it's a positive one. Our original plan was to create a parking area of roughly 18 spaces, 2 for people with disabilities, a kayak rack, seating, interpretive signage, historical interpretive signage. We've heard from some of the neighbors with regard to creating a parking lot of that size, so we've come up with 2 other options. And bear with me with my trace paper, I'm still old school. So option 1 creates a green Pleasant Street extension, a walkway that meanders through it, 2 riparian buffers, and a riparian buffer is a way to treat stormwater in a way that filters out contaminants, uses native plantings, and really creates a nice buffer for water entering the Sheepscot River. Kayak rack, interpretive signage. We have a drop-off area for people that wanted to drop off a person with a disability, perhaps. So it's basically the more greener approach to Pleasant Street extension. With that, though, we do need parking. People are going to come to White's Island, possibly from outside of Wiscasset. So we've created a 16-space parking area on the green space that is town-owned on 4th Street. With that, we've added 7 shade trees, a rain garden to treat stormwater that runs off of the parking area itself. It does obviously affect this green space that exists there now. So it's one drawback as far as adding more pavement and parking to a green space that potentially could be a park at some point. So that's one option that we looked at in response to what we've heard from abutting people. Our next option, which is option 3, option 3 is a combination of option 1 and option 2. We've created a small parking area for 9 spaces, 2 for people with disabilities. We've created a planting area and a riparian buffer and a walkway that would access the proposed bridge. So it's a combination of option 1 and 2, yet it still has low impact development techniques that added to it. There exists now a stone riparian wall that's there on roughly half of Pleasant Street extension. We plan on planting the rest of it with a riparian buffer that would adhere and plant and hold the river's edge and treat stormwater and get rid of contaminants that would enter the river itself. So it's a nice alternative as far as having some parking there. We're not sure how much use we're gonna get at White's Island once it's developed. So adding 9 spaces, and if we do get more use and we need more parking, we can always consider putting parallel parking along 4th Street in the future. But for now, I think it's a wonderful alternative that answers both areas. So basically, that's our revised plan. I've been meeting with Wayne, Mary Ellen, and Emily many times for the past 2 weeks. And we hope that the town would consider supporting this as far as going for a land and water conservation fund grant. Budget-wise, as you know from your handouts, we're looking at $582,000 for phase 1. And phase 1 would be the bridges going across, the crossing over the railroad area, and creating a small walkway encircling White's Island. So that comes in at 582. So we're looking at a $291,000 cost to the town of Wiscasset if we get the grant. If we don't get the grant, the project's not going to move forward. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Well,
Terry.
one question. So option 3 would be within this 291, or would that be in addition?
Option, the Pleasant Street extension would be in phase 2. Phase 1 would basically just be the 2 bridges, the overlook, the walkway around White's Island. Phase 2 would be developing Pleasant Street extension.
And I understand that one of the reasons that we need that walkway around the island is because if you just land there, especially folks who have difficulty walking over rocks or uneven ground, you really need a path.
You do. We had to do
want
something
safety
with White's Island rather than just have a bridge over to it.
Okay,
It's cleanup of debris that's out there now, and creating some type of pedestrian system that a person with a disability could access. Phase 2 would also include other improvements to White's Island in terms of fishing pier, kayak launch, etc.
so this represents a study that, or at least you have provided under phase 1 about half what you had proposed last
Roughly,
time,
yes.
right? Nice job.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, I believe you said yes last time, we can apply, if we get a grant for phase 1 and we wanted to do phase 2, we can apply again.
Correct. Land and Water Conservation Fund, you can go after many times. So phase 2 is definitely appropriate.
And let's say the town votes to do phase 1, but then eventually says, no, that's enough, we're done. Is there anything, any kind of penalty in terms of, is it fully 2 separate grants, or in phase 1, would you have to say, also, we plan to maybe do this in the future?
It's separate grants. So no, you don't have to go with phase 2 if.
We're not locked into phase 2 if we got a grant for phase.
Not at all.
Board questions, yes.
Excuse me, so that $291,000 that the town of Wiscasset would be responsible for, is that for phase 1 only?
Yes. Phase 1 only, and that doesn't include in-kind services, which there will be quite a few. For this.
It does include,
It does not include in-kind services.
so in-kind services do not come out of the 291?
No, in-kind services would come
Did
out.
come out of, okay, reduce
That's
it.
the-
Yes, I understand. He's saying it exactly, he's saying the same thing, exactly the opposite of how my mind works.
It would
I got it.
reducing the 290. So,
Okay,
for instance, the time that I've spent in this project would be taken off of that.
So do you have any idea on what the town's in-kind services might amount to by the end of the project?
what is your hourly rate?
We
So-
can't afford it.
So far, I've put in $24,000 worth of my time if I were to bill it out through my company. The other in-kind services, Wayne would have to answer more of those. I think.
Other board questions before I go to public questions? Dusty?
I would like to know why now. We're just talking about spending $2.2 million on capital investments. This doesn't have embedded revenue. It's got hoped for revenue because it'll attract people. So why now? Why would we not wait through this a little later?
Because this project has been around since 2004, when it was initially proposed to the town and designed. And it's been a long time, and it's been sitting there as a resource. And yes, it's not going to bring in direct revenue. It's going to bring revenue with regard to attracting people. It's going to both attract people from outside, but also provide a recreational resource for in-house people. Why now? Why not now, I guess? I don't know. It's been sitting there, and
And I just want to clarify, we're not actually going to do it now. We're just talking about presenting this to the voters to decide upon. So, all right.
correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Terry?
I would like to point out, however, that as this footbridge out there goes on, it is a hazard.
We're gonna get.
As it deteriorates, it is a hazard, and all we need is, something floating off down the Sheepscot to hit, some four-masted schooner coming up the boat, somebody's big fancy ship, and we're liable. So it's not just an eyesore, it's a hazard. We've been derelict in taking care of our property. And it has been, it's not something that happened last year, and it's not something that's going to ever get fixed unless we start to fix it.
Dennis?
I'm good, actually.
Okay.
I just want to point out that the last time I worked on this grant was 4 or 5 years ago, and several of us, including someone from the Flynn, the grant people, yeah, we kayaked out, and while we were walking the site and standing on the island, I saw people come across and climb over the barrier and go out onto the broken bridges. They were broken 5 years ago, and even if they're trespassing, we're still going to be liable for that. So we need to clean that up.
So you mentioned having worked on this before, you mentioned it going back to 2004. What would it have cost if we had done it then, as opposed to waiting for another 10, 20 years?
The 2004 estimates were, I believe they were in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. So yeah, it's triple, easily triple.
Pam, did you?
Yeah, I was gonna say I was on the board at the time, and I believe the estimates topped out at just replacing the bridges was $500,000.
Yeah, that's right.
That was just replacing the bridges at that point was $500,000, and the town decided to, which has not been done, to put a larger block at the end of the first bridge so that people can't climb over it. Which is, they need to build a better barricade, a better mousetrap, whatever, but you can build down the sides of that and around so people can't climb over or around it.
You getting that, Ted?
But it is.
Yeah, right.
Ted, but it is posted no trespassing, and I don't believe you're liable for somebody getting damaged on something they're not supposed to be doing. You warn them, it's dangerous, stay long.
That won't solve it, so it's just the same.
Right.
Okay, I will open it up for public comment. Yep. And again, just a reminder to everybody, please say your name and speak up.
Leslie Roberts, Fort Hill Street. And we appreciate all the energy that's been put into this master plan. It's really exciting idea. The Friends of Palm Cove are appreciative of the time and energy that the Parks and Rec Department have invested in the idea of creating access to White's Island. There are many in Wisconsin that would be delighted to once again visit our tiny little island in the cove. The Pleasant Street Extension, or the Causeway, is a hard-packed dirt strip that extends into Palm Cove and will serve as a connector to Hook Bridge to White's Island. This narrow strip of land is surrounded by wetlands, and during the storm tides and king tides, it's completely underwater all the way to 4th Street. Creating an 18-car or 9-car parking lot, whatever we're talking about now in that space, would require thousands of square feet of fill, further damaging the fragile ecosystems of wetlands and creating dirty runoff into the Sheepscot River, no matter what you plant. The wetlands there are home to nesting waterfowl. We have wading birds like egrets and herons. We have salmon, and we have osprey and eagles both nesting at Mason Station, which is just a stone throw away from White's Island. The cove is a lovely place to swim, we kayak, we paddleboard here in the warmer weather during the high tide. So our group would like to propose a much less expensive and green solution for that area. We could just naturalize the whole space by just planting native salt tolerant plants. It would still serve as this really beautiful gateway to the eventual, if we eventually are able to afford to build those footbridges. But planting a greenway in that space would save the town hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it would still serve as a walking destination for residents. Right?
Can't understand it.
Jackie said she can't understand. If you can speak up a bit.
Jackie, can you hear me? Anyways, the garden would include nesting boxes for local songbirds. You could have bat boxes, you could have some stone benches, we could have an area where the public library might do children's reading hour during the summer. It would just be a really nice natural place. It's already beautiful there. We could make it a little bit more beautiful, not spend hardly any money. Aside from the fact that this project would be really economical, it can be started as soon as possible since it won't require any permit review by the DEP or the Army Corps of Engineers, and we can construct it in phases over the course of a few years as we raise money, and we can raise money via grants, fundraising, and donations. So we ask that the town pivot away from the parking lot proposed, and we allow for the creation of greenway instead. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Catherine Martin, Savage, Wisconsin. I appreciate all the efforts that obviously there's an awful lot of work that has gone into this. But I keep thinking that back in the day, and I'm still a flatlander, even though I've only been here over 40 years, White's Island is kind of I don't know, it belongs to Wisconsin and its residents. And I think the ideas of, playgrounds, I'm glad that they eliminated that. I think it's a place just to walk to and enjoy what is there. And it could be enhanced, but a parking lot is absolutely, in my mind, ridiculous. Kayaks, I think if somebody wants to kayak, they can go and find a vendor on the commercial pier or wherever and rent a kayak and go kayaking off the, over there. I just think it should be kept simple. And for the enjoyment of the people in Wiscasset, I don't think we need to make it a destination for tourists. I think we have enough here for the tourists to enjoy. They can shop, they can go to restaurants, they can look at the museum, the County Historical Association spots to visit, but I think White's Island is for people in Wiscasset and not to worry about whether people from away are gonna try to figure out where the hell they're gonna park. They don't need to park. Anyway, it should be for Wiscasset people and kept as simply as possible.
Catherine, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Are you in favor, getting there, are you in favor of a footbridge?
Well, you have to have access to it.
Agree, I just wondered,
Well,
were you
that's-
supporting the
that's-
quick
That's
purchase?
almost a given. I mean, that's, obviously, it has, you
Yeah.
have to have access to it.
Yes.
But we don't need playgrounds with special, stuff for the kids not to hurt themselves, and we don't want this and that. We just need a nice quiet place.
The
for
way it
people who
was.
live here
Yeah.
to enjoy it.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Peter, and then I'll go back.
I do appreciate the comments, and I think we're close to being on the same page. We are proposing a very rural, quiet development on White's Island. A picnic area, a pathway, a kayak launch. What's there now at Pleasant Street Extension is, it's an eyesore. It's a parking lot now. And what we're doing is we're proposing plantings, we're proposing repairing buffers. We're doing a lot for the environment and for the water quality going into the Sheepscot with the proposed. And a 9-car from what, right now, you can fit 20 cars there. We're reducing that down to 9. We're adding shade trees and plantings and buffers. So we're really protecting the environment, making it more visible and much more nice to look at. So I think we're close to being on the same page.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jan Hobbs Bailey. I live in Wiscasset, and I live in this particular area as well. And I've been here for about 8 years. And I have a couple of things I want to say. I'm really much in favor of doing a park at this, I guess it's the end of Pleasant Street. We do not need parking. We have lots of on-street parking, and I have never, ever seen people, all 17 spaces worth of parking on this particular area. You might see on July 4th, you might see maybe 7 or 8 cars. We do not need parking. This should be one of the beauties of Wiscasset. It's a nice sleepy town, and I came here because of this. I wanted this type of town. I think we don't need to make so many changes. We can certainly make this a really attractive area for a park. You can walk through it. You can enjoy the surroundings. You could look at the water. The bridges, I understand that in order to use White's Island, we have to have the bridges. Should that be the first part of this? I don't know. Because number one, you're going to destroy the bridges anyway before you can put the new ones. So the White's Island itself, I think should be kept as a sanctuary. You don't build other things, forget the kayak racks, because I will say, you can take your kayak around and get off on the island. There are plenty of places to launch your kayak. I just think we need to be simple. And simple is always better. And I really want to say, my last comment is that if this project goes forward, I'd really like it to have a special committee under the auspices of the town itself. And this is going to sound a little childish, but it should have these staff, people on the committee should be on both sides of Route 1. Thank you.
Hamilton, Fort Hill Street. Peter, I understand that you just said that White's Island was an eyesore. I'm a photographer.
No,
No.
the parking area is not so.
As a photographer, all parts of White Island I have captured. Being on it, being away from it, it is not an eyesore in any sense.
I agree.
As far as the parking goes, from my perspective where I live, I see cars flying down Bradbury Street, right onto 4th Street, whipping around faster than anything. I could have a connection with the police chief and say, got another one, got another one, got another one, got another one, because nobody stops there. So as far as parking on Pleasant Street, 4th Street, on that island, you're just asking for a disaster to happen. Somebody's gonna get hit eventually. Preservation of that island is more important to this town than making it any kind of other destination. There are foundations from the lumber companies that once stood there, are still there. There are pilings that are still there. As far as your proposed kayak, the only place you're gonna be able to kayak is between here and the railroad or all Apollo Cove, which is not much of a kayak. So you're gonna have to go out to the Sheep's Guy to get there or do any of the kayak. Beautification is encouraged and welcome. As far as getting out there right now, sure, you can't get out there right now, but it's been like that. And from what I heard from Payson and the budget, this is not the time to be spending any kind of money. If we're gonna spend any money that they're proposing, there's a ton of maintenance in this town that needs to be done before anything is proposed that does not promote revenue for this town. We need to take care of our town. Maintenance is a huge issue in this town. We fall down on that constantly. You can look anywhere. That needs to be taken care of. That needs to be taken care of. That needs to be taken care of. Sidewalks need to be taken care of. We need something that's going to generate revenue. I like Kim's idea about bringing in a marina, getting somebody to do that. That's great down there. But you're not going to get any revenue on White's Island. And that's what this town needs. Revenue and maintenance. And I'll be taking some more shots out there as soon as I can. Thank you. Bill?
I like the drawings, the pavers that put together better than the other ones. And I like it, it'd be nice and pristine. But I don't think this is any time to spend $300,000 extra. Which is, well, yeah, it'd be close to $300,000 to do any one of these. Phase 2 or what the neighbors have done. I do think we should get some of that bridge out of there, keep people out of it. I think this is not the year to do this. Thank you.
Can I respond to what you just said?
Yeah.
When we brought up the grant like 4 or 5 years ago, it was because we wanted just to remove the bridges. And just removing the bridges will cost over $100,000. So that's, I mean, we can't just remove, it's not cheap, it's not inexpensive. We even had like that Davies guy from Westport Island come in and talk about it. And because of how deep the pilings go into the mud flat, they're like 30 feet down, and DEP requirements. You can't just burn the bridges or cut them down. It's like a big process to remove the bridges. So this deal, if we can do this for $291,000 and replace bridges at the same time, we're actually saving money. But again, this is something we're talking about tonight to put in front of the townspeople to decide as a whole group, all of them.
Okay, I saw Kim. No?
Me too.
Yes.
Kim Dolce. I don't think we are all on the same page here. There are a lot of beautiful places in the world that are not accessible, that are very difficult to get to, and you have to, and they are worth the effort. White's Island can be accessed by kayak, by canoe, by paddleboard. We don't have to have walkways out there. I'm not saying I would be against them sometime in the future, but this is not the time. And I know that you're getting ready to vote on whether or not to put it on the warrant so that The citizens can decide. But it's your job to determine what belongs on the warrant. And I would put it to you this way. You are the person in charge, you are the people or the person in charge of the family's finances. And you know that your roof is leaking. You know that your furnace is not going to make it through next winter. And you need a new transmission in your car. So your decision, hold it, I forgot, there's one other thing. Your kids are saying, why aren't you going to put in that pool? You've been talking about putting in that pool for years, and we were gonna have a big playground, and we were gonna have a barbecue outside and an outdoor kitchen. You've been saying we can have that. Let's have that. So you have to decide. Do you put in the playground and the pool? Or do you decide that your family needs to be dry and warm in the winter and that you have a car that can get you to work? That's what your decision is when you decide whether or not to put it on the warrant, because you are the ones who have all the information. It sounds like a fabulous idea. I'm not saying it's a bad one. I'm saying it's a bad time. And I hope you make that decision thinking about it that way.
Thank you.
Saying removing the bridges, to remove the planks that you have to walk on, and leave the rest of it there, so it's a couple $100,000.
Yeah, we can go after that.
Thank you.
Linda?
I think that's Linda. Linda Winterberg, I live on Pleasant Street.
Speak up, please.
Speak up a little bit.
Speaker on.
Linda Winterberg, I live on Pleasant Street, 2 houses away from the causeway, which we've always called it. We've never called it a parking lot in the 35 years that I've lived here. Most of the parking that takes place there or used to would be wormers. And now it's mostly people who park there so that they can walk their dogs in the village. I had the fortune of being able to walk on White's Island for many, many years when it was privately owned. The town owned the bridges, and when they fell into disrepair, the town declined to repair them. The town hasn't owned the island for that long. It's only been, I don't know how many years, less than 10 years now. It's a wonderful, unspoiled place that if we did have access, we don't need to do anything to improve it. It's beautiful. It's natural. We see the vestiges of the former uses, the lumberyard, the boat building, brickyard even, I think. I would just, the parking lot. Number one, I wonder how much research was done with neighbors, with people who live there. Your second plan calls for parking on the triangle on 4th Street. I happen to own a third interest of that property, and as far as I know, you could not develop that without my permission. The town owns 2/3 of it, and I own 2/3 of it. It surprised me that all of the neighbors had absolutely no idea that this was in the works. We're more affected than anyone else, and it would have been nice if we had been included in some of this planning. The parking lot to me would be an absolute horror. When you drive down Tucker's Hill, the view is so beautiful. The causeway is natural. If you put a parking lot in, even if it's 3 spaces, you're going to have to raise it a foot. You're going to have to pave it. It's going to be not beautiful. It's not going to enhance the area at all. Thank you.
Can I ask Linda a question?
Yep.
Linda,
excuse me, I tried to catch you before. Are you in favor of a footbridge?
I'm not against it, I'm not sure this is the time to spend the money. I'm
Do
okay
we-
with not having it right now.
Do we need to worry about the fact that that area right there is sinking and is often underwater? You would say no.
The causeway, you mean?
Yeah, the causeway.
No, I'm not concerned about that.
Okay.
Chris?
My name is Chris Reed. Somewhat in the minority. I've lived here for 65 years almost. And my great grandfather, Wellington Johnson, worked at Pendleton Yards up there on White's Island. And in the 60s, I remember going up there with my grandmother and my mother, and we'd go out and enjoy it, you know. And it just seems to me, I really would like to have some, you know, the bridge put back. But one of the questions I have about that is there was $50,000 for a railway crossing. And I realize it needs to be handicap accessible and everything, but doesn't the state own the railway? Why is it $50,000 for that? And what, down the Red Seats, people walk back and forth across the tracks there all the time. What would be the difference in that? And also, I did a little research with one of my granddaughters, I'll go to the playgrounds, which we have two. I see now that playground is no longer in play here, but I'm very familiar with the two playgrounds we have in Wiscasset, public ones. And also there's the Hidden Valley Nature Center on Egypt Road up in Jefferson that some of you, and they also go there. And I asked her the other day, I says, you know, if you could go right now, which would you rather go to? One of the playgrounds, which she was familiar with, the Hidden Valley Nature Center. And she didn't answer me at all. And then she came back and says, great, got go to the nature center. So I think that's something that, you know, all the foot trails and playgrounds and kayak racks and all that stuff. I think if we just left it basically as it is, cleaned it up, put some benches there, and that will give the kids more of an opportunity, you know, to get out there and look at the snakes and play in the mud and pull up seaweed, stuff like that, you know, that it would be more educational because we've got other places already. And not just for the kids, for the people coming here. People don't come here for a playground or a kayak rack. They come here to eat lobster rolls and go to White House. So, you know, I just think I would really like to see the bridges put up there. And then maybe look at how we could leave it as natural as possible, you know, with taking the history of it and, you know, just, and that would also, maintenance is a thing that comes up. If we put walks around and, you know, whatever gardens, they all take maintenance, and some of that, you know, is gonna cost the taxpayers. So that's just basically where I stand, and I also agree with this thing they put here, it'd be, you know, the parking. You know, this looks like a much better plan, it can be done naturally and a lot cheaper. And I believe there's been some discussion about we might have to move the sewer plant, right? So why are we gonna spend all this money on this island? And then we gotta move the sewer plant? That just doesn't compute to me, you know? Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
This is all waterfront.
Sorry, do you mind saying your name for that?
James Coachman, Citizens West Casket. This is all waterfront development. The Pier project is waterfront development. This proposal for White Island is waterfront development, but it's not being treated holistically. And this town is doing citizens the disservice, spending money without properly thinking this out and looking at it big picture. Also, waterfront is the whole plant issue. I really think that before we spend a dime on any of this, that we spend the money to bring in a crackerjack, top-level planner who has experience in waterfront development of this nature, all of these types of things, or a team, spend the money to have them do charrettes where they bring the citizens in, where we get the different opposing points of view. All of this is fed in, all of this is funneled, and from that, they then develop a request for proposals that can go out for public-private partnerships. Why do we keep digging into the tax dollars, the taxpayers' pockets for all of this? We are spending so much money on things that are relatively frivolous and not focusing, as others have said, on maintenance. I'd rather see a lot more spent on the roads and sidewalks in this town than on any of this. Also, what seems to be forgotten here is pay to play. We don't seem to address that in this town. We like to spend, but we don't seem to want to find the resources to make it pay first. If we're going to do any development, portions of it have to pay for the others. And if we're doing this, we know this is going to build infrastructure in this town. It means more staffing unless it's privatized. Chief, is the chief here? Okay, well, if he was, I'm sure he had concerns about, as soon as you put that boardwalk, I grew up in a waterfront community. As soon as you put that boardwalk up, who's going to be over there? Unsupervised adolescents and other people from out of the area doing drug deals and all these things. Are we going to hire yet another policeman to do foot patrol out there constantly? Because that is going to potentially be a danger zone. Have we planned for surveillance systems on the island if it's accessible? And also talking of, the idea of a playground, well, the children who be using the playground have to have adult supervision. Who's going to determine if they're old enough to go over there? Because we get drowning incidents, all kinds of things. I just don't think this has been properly thought out and needs to be back ordered. Spend the money on a planner before we do anything on any areas in our waterfront right now and focus on repairs in town. Thank you.
Anyone else here or online? Bill?
Get more exercise tonight. I want to pick up on what Kim and Jim mentioned. I was the chair of a planning commission somewhere else. We didn't have a downtown. And we came up with a plan with a big piece of lot in the middle of town and thought it was good. But what we did was we brought in developers and we explained it to them and said, look, we're asking for your opinion because this takes an investment. And you're the people that would invest in it. Are you interested in this? They looked at it and they said, no. We said, why? And they made a few changes. And one of the guys said, I'll have my people draw up something for it. It was similar to what we had, but it ended up being a $110 million project, which is now sponsored a couple of million across the street and up the road and so on. But going back to the marina, if what Kim was talking about was seeing if someone else could be interested in. If some private enterprise isn't interested in it because it's going to be a money loser, we shouldn't be interested in it. And it's a good way to find out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I don't think we're gonna be making a decision tonight. We do need to have one more. We're gonna need to have one more meeting anyway, because we have to have our recommendations as well. And approve the full warrant, yes. Any final comments before we move on? And we will, I'm sure we'll discuss one more time before we vote on all the capital, but. Dusty?
Yeah, I was glad to hear all the discussion and my curiosity about why now
those points were raised several times. When I envision this waterfront improvement, I see pilings all the way from past White Island, one back around. So when I look at that whole waterfront, I envision it starting on the Route 1 side and going the other direction. Because I think starting on the Route 1 side gives us an opportunity to develop things that would generate some revenue. So that's kind of my thinking on it. That's all I say. So we decide on it next time.
I'd like to thank everyone for speaking. I, for one, am always one for more participation in government, so I really appreciate you all, well, particularly staying this late at night. I know it's a long meeting, so thank you. All right.
So I need to know what it is you expect me to bring back to you with this capital budget.
Can we stay in the public hearing for this? Or we get out?
We're not in a public hearing. No.
No.
This is just budget discussion.
I know, is that gonna be?
My personal opinion is I would like to read through what Peter sent today. I would like to digest the rest of the comments from tonight. And frankly, add up the numbers again with White's Island included. I don't know if others need other information.
I'd like to see it with White's Island. If you include White's Island, I'd like to see the other number without White's Island.
White's Island's not included in this tonight.
Right. But could we see it with it so then we can?
Well, what they want to do with this is lock in the opportunity to go for the grant. So they're asking for the 291,000. And what they're asking as far as to come out of the reserves and go into the endowment. So you're moving it from one to the other, just so that you have the funds and the town is committed to it, because otherwise they can't apply for the grant. So the town's not committed to it, they just won't entertain the grant.
But that's the
So-
same as the pier, right?
No. White's
So the
Island,
grant,
yes, but
in
that's
terms of
total.
the situation,
that is
yeah.
totally.
Yes.
This particular grant you have to commit to upfront.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I want to do what you're saying. I want to wait. I want to find another moment, and then come back to vote on this. I'm supposed to go out of town this weekend, but I can stay home if I have to. What is the last possible day for it?
Without having Linda string me up and
To stay out of trouble with women.
already. I mean, really, the last possible day is the 14th. I give her this on the 14th, she's gone, but that is the drop dead day.
That's when
She's just
everything
gonna
else
have
has to be in for
She's gonna have to live with it if that's the way it
the
goes.
election, right?
I don't want to wait till the last minute because 2 years ago, our warrant had all kinds of mistakes on it. And for example, the select board approved the marijuana thing and it didn't get on the warrant. And it was like, oh, we were rushed. So I do not want to wait till the last minute.
So what is your proposal then?
We have to come back. I would not like to come back next Tuesday, but I could come back another night, but not Thursday or Monday. Sorry, Wednesday? Not tomorrow, but a week from Wednesday. I don't know.
When is the 14th?
I'm ready to
Thursday.
vote for it today, but if you guys want to wait, I'll wait. But I also do not want to jeopardize our warrant having errors because there was,
Well,
I think-
there were a ton of errors and we had to go back and do that whole.
There's
parts of
a-
Haven't we seen the warrant without this last?
There's a lot that can be done on the warrant now. She needs to get this into the system for the ballot company. The stuff that you guys have approved, that I know you're gonna approve on the warrant, I can give to her and she can be working on. So she doesn't have to wait right until the very
Okay.
last day in order to do
So
this,
we'll have everything but capital on there, right?
pretty much.
There isn't
yes.
anything
that's
else but capital?
Yeah, that's fine.
It's only 4 or 5
So we can wait 2 weeks.
things.
Not 2 weeks, we meet next week.
You have to meet before the 15th.
You can't do Tuesday, or anything?
can we meet at 5:30 and can I participate by Zoom? I have to be in Searsport.
Oh, the meeting's gonna be by Zoom, anyway, from now on, so.
Yeah, Zoom in addition to in person.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can I, you guys, I mean, I have to be up there.
Yeah,
Okay.
why not? So we do 5:30?
Does that work for those? And that
Well-
helps you a little bit with Linda in terms of everything but that? Okay,
So is it my understanding that you want to stick with the 3.5% to come out, and then you want to bond the rest?
That's what I want to do. Like these guys can say what they
That-
wanna do.
for me, that is the other thing I want to think about now that we've gotten the presentation for our
I'll put together some options.
Yeah, we need to talk about it.
I don't even think we need another meeting. I would say let's do option 2 and 3.5% and bond everything else and let the people decide.
Do you have a question?
I do, I have one question about this project, Leslie Roberts. If we haven't even gone through the permitting process, we haven't gotten a permit from the town, DEP, the Army Corps of Engineers, we don't know what we can or can't build, so our numbers might not even be accurate.
Exactly.
Why-
That's exactly right.
But why?
All
would
we need to do
I would
is,
ask that you let her finish speaking.
Why would we put a number on the ballot and ask people if they want to vote for it if the numbers aren't accurate? We don't know what we can or can't build. That was my question. Thank you.
because if we don't have a commitment to come up with some matching number, we cannot apply for the grant. We might not even get this grant.
Okay, I ask that we don't argue back and forth, please.
No, I'm just trying to clarify, like, this is not a done deal, it's not a proposal, we just need to get the town to back matching funds for a grant. Probably a good part of these funds, at least for sure 24,000, are gonna be in-kind donations, it's not even gonna be money that we raise. It's a no-brainer. In
Am
my
I
opinion.
getting, I know you're ready to vote tonight, or the other three?
I'm not ready to vote yes for it. I think we could.
Neither am I.
From some committee work and a planner to be part of it, and I think we could come up with a much better proposal with all the inputs. I think this proposal is great, but I think we could improve it.
But you're not ready to vote tonight.
Yes. Correct.
Thank you. Terry?
Reason I don't want to vote tonight is because I want an opportunity to get a positive vote. I think there's much uncertainty about how to go about the money. And I think that there are ways to do it that everybody could agree to, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it here tonight. We haven't really had that opportunity. I don't think it would take too long, but I do think we need another meeting to just sleep on it and settle it out. If Dennis has enough to go with and is only waiting on 3 or 4 warrant items, you're gonna be okay, right?
We'll make it work.
You're courageous, Dennis.
I have a paramedic license.
You know how to operate.
This
the
is not
detail,
an
is that it?
emergency. I want to move on, but Chris,
This whole thing, you know, we've heard from the patients, we've heard a lot of comment from the public here. I didn't know about this. When was the first time this plan was presented? When did the, a couple of weeks ago? And it seems like this is another thing that we've got to do just because it's got to be done. And, you know, and there's ways around this if we can just meet together. You know, this is something that deserves a lot more time than has been allotted to. And now you're talking about it gotta be done before the warrant gets printed. Is there gonna be another public meeting, or is it just gonna be a closed, another town Wiscasset?
there is,
Yeah, how are we gonna get, how do people know?
there is always a public hearing before actual voting day, and that is where people can come and speak on any
But I'm
of the
talking
warrants.
about, you are gonna put on the warrant now a certain plan. There hasn't been enough input into what they want to do with the parking, what they want to do with the island. You know, the citizens of the town haven't been involved in this.
Yeah, that's it. It's just an idea. It's just an idea so that we can get support to put up matching funds. If the matching funds are raised and then the matching funds aren't even raised, if we get the grant and then we need to spend matching funds, we come back and we look at the plan. We're not voting on this plan today. This is just to give everybody an idea of what could happen. We can't even apply for this grant unless we get the opportunity to say that the town would put up funds or in-kind services. We're not asking people to approve a parking lot tonight, or even when they vote on the warrant. That's not how it would work.
I would really like. We're going to discuss this the next meeting. I really don't want to cut anyone off. It is after 8 o'clock. I would. Okay. I mean, I just.
The 12th?
I don't think we're.
Today.
I think there's an impression we're voting on this tonight. We are not voting on this tonight. That's part of the reason why I don't want to vote tonight, is because some of this information is new as of tonight, and I don't believe a project this big, when you get new information, should be voted on the same night we get it. Okay, Pam and then Dennis.
So can we confirm that we're meeting at 5:30 on the 12th to discuss, to finish this discussion, and then we can move on?
Yes.
Is setting the meeting?
At the risk of probably being strung up by the flagpole again, you know, there is another option if people don't feel that this has been enough time. There's a general election in November. There's absolutely no reason why there can't be another town meeting in November.
There you go, do it now.
There's, having to do with the bonds. We're gonna be, we would need more time to do that.
Yes.
And we missed that window. So we really do need to get, I mean.
Well, this wouldn't be bonded anyways. So
Because we wouldn't know if we got the grant.
we're not gonna borrow money on something and pay it back if we're not gonna use it. It's gonna be transferred into the endowment fund and it will sit there until there's such time as it
I
needs to be
needed to
spent.
hear that.
Okay, final comments, Chris, Ed. I really don't want to cut anyone off, but if it's new arguments, please. And we'll move
I
on.
just had a quick comment. I thought at previous meeting that this number on the ballot was a commitment by the town to spend those funds. As we applied for a grant, it was a commitment by the town. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
If we get the grant.
If you get the grant,
Exactly.
if you don't get the grant, you don't spend the funds.
Are we meeting next week?
Yes, we are meeting next week.
12, is that the date? 12, at 5:30.
Right.
All right, we have a fair amount to get through after this. All right. And like I said, we will revisit this next week. Again, thank you for your comments. I really don't want people to feel cut off, but I do want to move along because I think the board also needs to think about the options that were presented tonight. And then we need to have a full board discussion. We'll have more public comment and then we'll make a decision. All right. Number 10, new business, resignations, Anthony Russo, Cemetery Committee, and Terry Wells Cemetery Committee. Open for motion.
So moved. I move that Anthony Russo and Terry Wells be thanked for their service and we accept their resignations.
Thanks. Second.
Okay.
I agree. Sorry.
All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, 10B, appointment of election clerks, open for motion.
I move to appoint the election clerks as recommended by the town clerk.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any questions or discussion?
Could you just read the names of who those folks are?
There's only 35 of them.
Oh.
Yeah. We can get you a copy.
I'll give you a copy.
Thank you, that'll work, thank you.
Pretty much the same thing every year.
Okay, motion on the floor to accept as recommended. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Correspondence, we had, a note from Nancy Roby about public restrooms. We had that in our packet. D10D, request to revive Conservation Commission. Pleasant? Yeah.
Roberts, once again. I know that we've had a conservation commission. I think it's gone, sort of gone inactive over the past few years. But we have an interest, we have people that are interested in getting this to go again, have some good ideas. All the low budget for zero cost. But it seems like it would be a nice time if we're talking about green initiatives and ways we can save money in the town. Energy audits, things like that would be. Got two other people you'd love to get started.
Yeah, I'd like to see a written description of what this commission, the people who are interested in this commission, I'd like to see a written description of what they would think their duties are, and if that was something we were going into, I'd like to see a policy written for that.
The commission that did exist, like at least up until the past 3 or 4 years ago with Ann Leslie and Marty Fox. Yeah, they're just not meeting at all anymore.
Marty wants to join. Yeah, and CBC, so it'll be Jan is interested in Jan, I'm spailing myself and Marty Fox.
I have to say, it was participating on that committee where we first went after this grant in coordination with the Parks and Rec and with the town. So it all comes full circle.
Right. So you'd like a list of activities?
Yeah, I'd like to see a description of what the commission would be covering.
Sure.
In town, and I'd like to see a some kind of a policy on committees or something on that would govern boundaries and so forth.
We can get that back to you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the consideration.
Thank you. 10E, Juneteenth holiday, to vote.
Yep, I've mentioned this to you guys previously. The state and federal government have declared Juneteenth as a holiday. So I need to know whether the town wishes to go along with that or not. Not every town is doing it. There was a survey I just had, there were 50 towns and 29 have voted to do it. 6 have definitely voted not to do it, and the rest are in the process.
So what does accepting Juneteenth as a Wisconsin holiday, does that require of the town to do as a follow-up for Juneteenth?
In terms of,
Is the town going to do, are you talking about it's another employee holiday, you're talking about it's something the town's gonna do a parade?
No, it's just,
What would the town do?
it's an employee holiday, that's
I
all.
see.
Which would be on Monday, since it falls on a Sunday this year.
Correct.
Yeah.
So there would be a Monday holiday.
Sure.
Schools are closed.
Yeah, I know.
Schools are closed. It's, the state is closed, so if the office is open, people come in and have an issue, then we have to contact the state. We're not gonna be able to help them anyways. So,
I would like to see us adopt Juneteenth.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
It is a motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes,
Is this something that the town should vote on? Because if the town office is gonna be closed for something like that, shouldn't that something that the town?
It's a-
I don't believe we've done that in the past.
I don't believe they have it. It's been a policy that the selectmen can declare holidays.
It's a state holiday.
And a federal
A new one.
holiday.
All right, Calling for vote, all those in favor? Okay, passes 5-0. 10F, sewer abatement for Andre Baston Dixon.
I move to approve this sewer abatement for Andre Baston Dixon.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any questions? All right, calling for a vote, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. NG, update the property / facility use policy. You know, Dennis, you made some changes.
Yep, just based on your last time I brought this up.
Mhm.
So some changes.
Anyone have any questions on it? Kim?
Can you share what those changes were?
Sure, it basically means that Dwayne will control the rental of the community center as he is now. Everything else will have to come before the board, except for something that's of one day, like the garden club coming out here to. So,
It's still $35 a day, that was what.
yeah, the fees haven't changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have it.
Okay, do you mind? Go ahead.
I had seen the $35 a day, so I took a few, sorry. Kim Belching. I took a few moments to take a look at what other community centers would be doing. I looked briefly at the Booth Bay, why is not currently renting out any of their facilities. But that is, and just an example of some of the fees that they charge. A half-court basketball party.
Hold on,
What?
this does not include fees for community.
Oh, yeah, no.
This is not.
Okay.
community
So
center
what
is
is
not
that
gonna
for $5? Because he, in the documentation, he lists all the town facilities and it says $35 a day.
He charges more than that for.
Thank
rental.
goodness,
Yeah.
I'm so thankful.
No,
to hear
that wasn't the intent of this. The intent of this was, if you want to use this building to sell plants, it's gonna cost you $35 because I've got to keep the lights on and keep the heat running.
Okay.
This wasn't intended to be part of the community.
The way
center.
that read, it is if he was renting out the whole pool.
What did you do?
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, no,
Thank you. Where can I see what those fees are?
I can dig.
Go back.
I can dig.
Pardon me?
If you want to know what the rec fees are, just go down there.
On the
For parties and rentals.
Yeah.
On their website.
They'll
Yeah, I
give
think
you
it
all.
actually is on their website.
Give you a tour.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
has his own.
Sorry to take the time.
That's
for that.
okay.
Questions? I felt like each of the pieces we discussed were fixed. No? Do you need to vote on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Town managers report.
Move on.
Thank you.
Number 12, assessor's business and abatement for Kazi LLC, map R04, lot 5 for $775.09.
Move to approve the abatement for Cassie LLC.
Second. Questions? All those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Other board business, we have one. Dennis, do you want to explain?
Yeah, I made a major boo-boo here tonight. Thought he was going to be on the agenda to discuss the updated art gallery lease proposal, and knowing that we were going to be here past 8 o'clock tonight, I took it off the agenda because I knew it was going to be a discussion and we were going to be here for 10 o'clock. But I didn't notify them. So they had some developments that have happened just recently. I'll try to bring up the letter.
They received the data.
So I'll read you the letter real quickly. They're happy to announce they have learned the Main Art Gallery has received a $15,000 grant from the Davis Foundation for the remediation of the water filtration into the basement. The total cost is $22,500. The gallery will be paying $7,500 of that out of their own pocket. So this, and I know David's here, so he can probably speak to this a little better. This is just for the outside water issue that we have with water running into the basement constantly. They've already arranged for contractors to come and do this, starting as early as next week. And so I can't wait until the next select board meeting to put this out here, and then do need selectmen approval in order to move forward with this repair.
Can we do it at our special meeting next week?
It's really.
Or is it really quite dry?
It's no expense.
Digging a trench.
So, David, can you just explain what it is they're planning to do? Sure, briefly.
David Pope, on the building committee at the art gallery, and over the years, water has been seeping into the cellar on the uphill and front side of the building. And it has filled the building with moisture. And so last year we got estimates from several contractors on the best way to treat that. And one of them was to put a perimeter drain in the cellar with a sump pump. We were advised to put a trench around the building and drainage to keep the water from getting into the cellar in the first place. And also install dehumidifier on top of that. And so that's a huge first step into taking care of the building. The building is in reasonable shape, but it's starting to go because of all the moisture issues. And so in order to do any improvement in the front steps, in other words, to get into the building, ADA access and all that, there has to be a reasonable drainage plan for the building. And so that's what this does. Okay. Digging down below grade, putting pipes in, remove the water downhill from gravity.
This does not involve altering the building in any way.
No. It would expose the foundation as far down as they go to
just briefly
put the site, just briefly, yeah. And so, yeah, it doesn't impact the building at all. And it would also show us where the foundation needs to be repaired. And I think that's part of the issue is repairing the foundation as we go. Whether or not we can do that, we're not sure.
Yeah.
So basically, this is building a French drain around the perimeter of the building. And you're using grant money and main art gallery money, and there's no expense to the town.
Right.
I'm ready to approve.
I'm ready to second.
You mentioned a humidifier,
A dehumidifier.
dehumidifier down the basement there, and is that in the maintenance cost for those? Who's handling that cost for that?
That would include that, as far as I.
What's that would include that?
What's in the grant?
Oh, grant, okay. That ongoing. Okay.
I'm
I
not
just
sure what
wondering,
your
is
question is.
that the dehumidifier?
Well, they're responsible for the ongoing maintenance of the building anyway, so.
I just wondering.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, move to approve.
Second.
Any further questions? Okay, calling for a vote, all those in favor? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations on the grant.
I apologize to members of the public who weren't made aware of this.
All right.
I just, I make mistakes, that's all.
Nothing.
Any other board business?
Number 14.
Okay. Before we adjourn, I just want to thank you all again for staying late. We will go as late as we need to the next time to exhaust any questions both from the public and the board. But I hope everybody understands that I think we need to have more to consider, before we get to those votes, so. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, everyone.